knitting. Here everybody comes.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
How exciting. Look at this,
Hey.
3 pages of wonderful people.
Because we love you, Lee.
Oh,
Yes,
Yes.
we love you, Lee.
thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. All right. Let's get the party started.
Okay, thank you guys for coming tonight and support Pages of Bookstore and Lee, who has written this very great book here for all ages. Yeah, anyway, thank you guys. We'll have a short intro from Brave Trails. I believe Lee wanted that at the top. So let's do that.
Yeah, let me just explain. So I really think, yes, it's a book, but it's actually an empowerment program for kids. Shh. So the idea behind it is that I wanted to get into as many kids' hands as possible, especially LGBTQ kids and teens. So the idea is that I don't know that many. So I teamed up with Brave Trails, who is this amazing nonprofit. They run a camp called Camp Brave Trails. And I'm really excited that Amy from Brave Trails, who I believe runs their book club program, is here to just tell us a little bit about why you're going to want to buy a book to donate to the kids at Brave Trails. Amy, 2 minutes, go for it.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. My name is Amy. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. I'm super excited to be here. I peeled through Queer as a $5 Bill in less than a day, and I'm really excited for the next book. I'm an enormous fan of YA fiction. I do not believe it was meant just for the Y, but for everyone. So Brave Trails is an unbelievable experience. We are on a mission to build the next generation of LGBTQ plus change makers. You know, for anyone here who went to summer camp is the place where you can be your most authentic self. And to see that as a queer space is outrageously unbelievable. People who come to camp are free to experiment with themselves, to be themselves, to bloom into themselves, to investigate different sides of themselves, to dive into who they are, to make connections, to have adult role models where they can see themselves growing into amazing citizens and activists and members of society. And it's a really magical place. We have 3 sessions out in California and 1 session out in Maryland. So we bring in campers from all over the world, but we're really able to also be on both coasts. In addition to the summer camp, we also have year-round meetups that are open to anyone. We have a mentorship program. We have family camp. There's a lot of really amazing ways to get involved. And so right now we started a book club this year. It's been really popular, and it's not your traditional book club, right? The kids are putting together PowerPoints and presenting. Different staff are coming in and doing read alouds and reading different sections of books. I read aloud. There is, if no one has read to you in years, go find someone and do a read aloud, like the magic of being read out loud to and reading out loud. And what these books do for camp, there's nothing more incredible than watching 100 kids read the exact same book at the exact same time, and the chatter that's going on, and seeing yourself, representation is everything. And seeing yourself represented in literature through history is really powerful and empowering. So please support Lee, support the book, and support the work that we're doing at Brave Trails. And thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And Pages Bookstore is amazing, and they're helping to, they're helping to organize the whole thing. I get to sign every copy because they're close enough that I can swing on by and on my way to the office, although I don't go to the office anymore. And yeah, so it's really great. So you can get the book from Pages, and then we will get it delivered to Brave Trails, and then they'll give it to the teens. So that's really exciting. So I was talking to Brave Trails, to Casey, actually, months and months and months ago. I don't know, back in November, and we were talking about doing this event. And we talked about how it shouldn't just be me talking. It should really be a conversation. So they were like, they challenged me. They're like, well, who would be, a writer you would want to do it with? And I immediately thought of Alex because I adore Alex's writing. His honestly, like, you brought me The Ocean, the graphic novel that he wrote, which is like I love this book so much. Like, I would talk about if I had a time machine, I'd go back and give my book to my teenage self. I'd bring this book to my teenage self too, because it was that amazing. And he has a new book out called The Greatest Superpower. So I asked him to do it and he said yes, which is amazing. So Alex, hi.
Hey, Lee, and hey, everyone. And thanks, Pages, for doing this. This is wonderful. So part of the fun I get this evening is to introduce Lee. Probably all of you know him by now, but in case there's someone out there who doesn't know him, I was trying to think when I first got to know of Lee. I don't know if when that was, but it just seems like you've been there throughout my career, just a huge supporter of my books and of queer youth in general. So I was honored that you invited me to do this with you tonight.
Well,
Lee, I know I think I heard of you through the wonderful newsletter website. I'm here, I'm queer, what the hell do I read? If you don't know that or aren't subscribed to it, I really recommend it. Just amazing resource for queer YA and children's books. And then I guess it was 2 years ago, you came out with Queer as a $5 Bill. And if you don't know that book, it's a wonderful YA story. Recommend that. And I'm very excited about this new book that we're here for, which we're here tonight. So Lee, why don't you give us just the 2-sentence elevator pitch for No Way They Were Gay.
sure. So I think that I think it's impossible to imagine that everyone in history was a straight, white, rich guy who was cisgendered and from Europe. Like, I just don't think that's possible. So it turns out it's not even true. And the way that history has sort of been sanitized for all of for the protection of the people in power, and it's left out women, and it's left out people of color, and it's left out disabled people. And in particular, it's left out men who loved men and women who loved women, people who loved without regard to gender, and people who lived outside gender boundaries. And so the idea behind this book is to make history more like chocolate, less like medicine, and to make it really fun and interesting. And speaking of fun, we're going to do a trivia contest tonight. We have 7 rounds of trivia, and we're not exactly sure how it's going to work, but this is what we think. I'm going to put up the question on the screen, and then you get to raise your hand if you want to guess out the answer. And then, because I know so many of you, Alex is going to call on somebody to answer. So can you all see No Way They Were Gay trivia? Give me some thumbs up if you can, please. Awesome. Thank you, John. I see you. Okay, so here's the first question, multiple choice. Oh, and what do you win? What do you win? You win this really cool, so this is a Good Luck Penny bracelet. I'll show it to you when I'm stopping the screen share, but I have 7 of these prizes to give away. So if you want one of these prizes, here it is, the question. Michelangelo carved a secret into the statue of David, his ideal of male beauty. It was A, a pierced ear, B, Michelangelo's initial hidden under the slingshot, C, hearts in the eyes, or D, a love poem carved into the base. All right, Alex, choose somebody.
Okay, I'm trying to see a hand up. Anyone have a hand raised?
I see Cindy and Tobin and Ashley have hands up.
All right, let's go with Ashley.
Hello, it is C, hearts in the eyes.
You are correct. Congratulations, Ashley. All right. Yeah, he spent 3 years creating the statue when he was only in his 20s. So, it blew my mind learning this. So, okay, so Ashley, this bracelet is yours, and we're gonna go to the second question. All right. Multiple choice, British King James I loved another man, George Villiers. who he had promoted to Duke of Buckingham. James is more famous for A, having 8 wives, B, the English language version of the Bible, C, being the king of hearts on the deck of cards, or D, owning the jewel called the Three Brothers. So I see a lot of hands up. So again, Alex, you need to save the day and choose somebody.
All right, let's go with Tobin.
So he did the King James Bible.
Tobin, you know your history. Yes, and I think that is what we call historical irony. So congratulations. All right, so what I forgot to do is that I wanted, because this is so much about, this book is really not about listen to Lee's voice. This book is about listening to the voices of people from history. So what I want to do is really quickly read you a little bit of the love sonnet that Michelangelo, who carved David, wrote to Tommaso de Cavalieri. He wrote, if through our eyes the heart seen in the face, more evidence who needs clearly to show the fire within. Let that do, my lord, that glow as warrant to make bold to ask your favor. Perhaps your soul loyal, less like to waver than I imagine, assays my honest flame, and pitying it finds it true, no cause for blame. Ask and it shall be given. In that case, O day of bliss, if such can be assured, let the clock hands end their circling. In accord, sun ceases ancient roundabout endeavor, so I might have certain sure, though not procured by my own worth, my long desired sweet Lord in my unworthy but eager arms forever. Michelangelo, so incredibly cool. And wait, who else did we do? We did, oh yeah, we did James the First and his love for George Villiers. So James the First wrote this in a 1623 letter to George, and this is in the chapter on Queen Anne. He wrote, I cannot content myself without sending you this present, praying God that I may have a joyful and comfortable meeting with you, and that we may make it this Christmas a new marriage, ever to keep hereafter. I desire to live only in this world for your sake, and that I had rather live banished in any part of the earth with you than live a sorrowful widow's life without you. King James Bible, amazing. All right, Alex, let's talk a little bit, and then we'll go back to some more trivia later.
All right, so I loved going through this book. So I'm really curious, how did you choose the people? How did you decide on the organization of the book? Because it's talkful. You got these, 4 main, men who loved men, 4 main women who loved women, and then 4 main. I can't remember exactly how you put it, but
people who lived outside gender boundaries.
That's it. So how did you organize that? How did you choose the people?
It was a really long process. I've been really working on this book for 11 years. So over that time, there were many more chapters, and then we winnowed it down. And the goal was always to have the chapters be really robust, that there was really enough good stuff to, there's a lot of survey books where it's like 1 paragraph on a person, maybe 2 lines from a Shakespeare sonnet. And that's great. And I like those books a lot. But what I wanted to do is really let the people speak and let the reader dive in with me into analyzing these primary sources and really explain it. I don't know if you remember pop-up video, but like there'd be a little thing like, pop, this is a rainbow balloon next to Lee. I wanted to have it be that kind of chattiness. And so ultimately we ended up winnowing it down. So there are 12 chapters that are sort of the main people that I wanted to talk about. And then there's 12 additional people kind of thrown in with little bits and tidbits, because it was just so hard to leave people out. And yet still there were people that got left out. The idea was to not impose our current linguistic categories on people in the past. And that's why I went with men who loved men, women who loved women. I always want to acknowledge that there are people that loved without regard to gender, and then a section on people who lived outside gender boundaries. And really that's gender boundaries as we see it in the West. There were some people that I featured in that section that lived completely within the gender boundaries of their cultures, just not within the gender boundaries of our Western culture. Weiwa was a great example of that. But yeah, it was such an education, and I feel like it just started my journey. So it's been really, really, thank you. It's been really cool.
Well, one of the things I did love about it was, if you haven't seen the book yet, I guess you can't really see it on the screen, but all those pop-ups and sidebars and just so many pictures in here. How did you research all this? I mean, it's just amazing. How did you do that?
Over a very long period of time. And I have to say that keeping track of the resources, my advice for anybody is do your footnotes as you go. It is very hard to go back. And you never know, there might be a pandemic and then it's hard to get the books from the library back. So make lots of copies of things. I made lots of screenshots. Yeah, it was a huge undertaking. And then permissions was also a huge undertaking. But a lot of things weren't written in English. And then you want to get the permissions to use the translation and but I couldn't be happier. It's beautiful. And the team at Learner especially did such an amazing job at making it feel this idea I have, right? Like that when I was in school, history was like, it was like medicine. It was like, learn these names, learn these dates. I couldn't have cared less. And I even say in this, in the beginning, when I say dates aren't important. It's really the stories, the people. History is the stories of amazing people. And yet we don't really know it because we just teach, silly little rhymes. Like in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. I remember that, but did I know anything about Columbus? No, I mean, I really didn't. And nor did I know the injustice that was being perpetrated on the Americas by colonialism. So a lot of those sort of themes of talking of those larger things got into the book as well. Even the chapter on Gandhi, where he is so revered, I was so thrilled to discover that there was this, and I put it in as a sidebar in one of the books by Gloria Steinem. She talked about going to India to research Gandhian techniques and sort of discovering that women had taught Gandhian techniques. And I thought that, and so there's actually a little sidebar said that's called "Beware the Great Man Theory of History." We're all on this journey of learning more as we go. And what I'm really hopeful for is that for young people in particular, but for everybody reading this book, it sort of starts their journey of digging into history and being more being more questioning about the history that we're being served on a platter and being told this is history, because it's really not.
Yeah, well, you really brought the people to life. They really jump off the page as living, breathing human beings. And while I was reading, it was like this constant, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And oh wow, I never heard that before. And yet you present things in such a way that it's like, okay, here's the evidence. Now you decide. Do you think they were gay? Do you think they were queer? And I just love that aspect of it, that you really engage the readers that way.
Thanks. In doing the research, sometimes things came up that didn't really support my vision, right? Like, and I felt that it was my challenge to make sure to include those. Like there was a moment in the Sappho, in my research on Sappho, that I actually discovered she wrote this love poem to a young man. And I was like, oh no, not Sappho. I was all upset about it. But then I thought about it more and more, and then I read more about it, and I included it in the book because I don't want to cherry pick from history. I feel like that's what everybody else does. They just cherry pick the stuff that supports their argument. And I don't want to be that person. I want to be really transparent with the people that read it. And I want them to be excited about being trusted to know that history can be complex and people can be multifaceted. And in fact, yeah, Sappho wrote this one poem about her love for another guy, but man, there were the vast majority of her poems were about her love for other women. And that's really the legacy that we've all inherited with the kiss of true love. But that's in the book. We'll get more to that later.
All right, shall we do another trivia?
Yeah, let's jump in. Let's do trivia. All right, so back to trivia. All right. So multiple choice. Sappho, we were just talking about Sappho. Because she sang of her love for other women, Sappho's poems were systematically destroyed throughout the centuries. The only place fragments of Sappho's poems have not yet been discovered is an ancient trash dump in Oxyrhynchus, Egypt. I do not know how to pronounce that clearly. B, in the mouth of a mummified crocodile. C, inside this Greek vase, which has the image of Sappho on the cover, on the exterior. Or D, the hard cartonnage case of an Egyptian mummy. All right, let's get some hands up in the air. And Alex, you get to choose.
I can't see them all, so if you list them off, I'll choose one.
I don't see, do we have any hands up? Oh wait, I see April with a physical hand up.
All right, let's go with April.
I'm just guessing because I like this the best, in the mouth of a mummified crocodile.
Well, no, actually it was indeed found in the mouth of a mummified crocodile. So we need another person to guess. We're down to 3 choices. Can I get a raised hand?
I saw Zena.
Inside this Greek vase.
Yes, not in the vase. You're right, Zena. The trash dump, the mouth of the mummified crocodile, and the cartonnage case of the Egyptian mummy are all true. It is crazy how they keep discovering, even like, I think less than 10 years ago, they discovered yet another Sappho poem with a little chunk of cartonnage that they opened up. Okay, so Sappho, let's, you know what, we're gonna do the 2 questions and then I'll open it up so we can see, so you can see me reading, and I will read you the Sappho poem because it is my favorite. All right, one more question. Multiple choice. In 1910, mountain climber Freda de Far fell in love with another woman, Muriel Cadogan. Freda honored their relationship by A, carving Muriel's name onto 1,000 stones. B, naming 2 side-by-side mountains, de Far Peak and Cadogan Peak. C, writing Muriel a song. Or D, adding C to her own initials. All right, we need some hands up.
Did I see Carolyn? Carolyn, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. Hi. This is a wild ass guess, but I like the idea of her naming 2 side-by-side mountains for them both, because that is forever.
And indeed, she named 2 side-by-side mountains, de Far Peak and Cadogan Peak. It's in New Zealand by Mount Cook. Wait, so who had that correct answer?
I did.
I don't see you, so it's Carolyn?
Carolyn. Hi, Lee.
Hi. I don't know
Carolyn,
why I'm not,
Chris.
I don't know why I'm not seeing you. Oh, there you are. Hi. Okay.
Hi.
There's so many screens of people. It's such a good problem. All right. So, so I want to read you 2 things. Congratulations. I'm going to read you 2 things. I'm going to start with Sappho. So this is my favorite of Sappho's poems. It's the one that is, it's thought to be almost complete. And it starts out, there are those who say an array of horsemen, and others of marching men, and others of ships is the most beautiful thing on the dark earth. But I say, it is whatever one loves. It is very easy to show this to all, for Helen, by far the most beautiful of mortals, left her husband and sailed to Troy, giving no thought at all to her child nor dear parents, but was led by love alone. Now far away, Anactoria comes to my mind, for I would rather watch her moving in her lovely way and see her face flashing radiant than all the force of Lydian chariots and their infantry in full display of arms. I love that poem so much. And that poem actually, when you read the chapter, you'll discover how that poem is actually the key to why Beauty and the Beast and Snow White and Sleeping Beauty all end with a kiss of true love breaking the evil spell. Gotta read the book to find out why. And then the second one we did was Freda de Far. So when Freda wrote her own autobiography about, I guess it was more of a memoir, right? Because it was just about, it was called The Conquest of Mount Cook and Other Climbs, an account of 4 seasons mountaineering on the Southern Alps of New Zealand. And her dedication was to Muriel. To my friend Muriel Cadogan, whose love and sympathy have never failed me, I dedicate this book. I just thought that was so romantic. And she named a mountain after her. I mean, come on, that's incredible. All right, let's talk more, Alex.
Yeah, well, one of the things, I wanted to mention was, when my first book, Rainbow Boys, came out, I started getting these emails from young people that started telling me about how these characters that I created were their role models because they didn't know any openly out LGBTQ people. They would read these stories that I wrote, and all of a sudden it's like that sense of representation of, oh my gosh, there's someone else out there in the world like me. And then that empowerment that came from that, and how they would tell me, because of you, reading your books, I started Gay Straight Alliance in my school, or I came out to my parents. Could you talk a little bit about, how you have seen that, how you want to see, how you would like to see, books for queer young people as sources of empowerment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have this joke, right? Like that if I had a time machine, I would go back and give, well, Alex's book and also my book to myself, because I know what a difference it would have made at age 11 to know that Abraham Lincoln was in love with another guy, or that Eleanor Roosevelt was in love with another woman, or that there was a pharaoh in Egypt that changed their gender their presentation of their gender over 22 years. Like that would have blown my mind, and it would have helped me maybe be brave enough to be my authentic self a little earlier. I was actively hiding in the closet from age 11 to 25. So I feel like at any point along that way, if I had learned even one of the 24 stories in here, it would have completely changed my life. So I kind of, I don't have that time machine. So my goal is to pay it forward. And, my superpower, I guess, is writing. And that's really what I'm hoping to do with the book. And there's a lot of noise in our culture about like, what awards did your book win, and how many copies did it sell, and what was the first run that the publisher did. And I think that we can get lost in that a little bit. And what I really try to remind myself is that it's not, I mean, I can even obsess about how many people are here at this launch party. No, truly. But more important is the impact that this can have on someone reading it. That recognition. I mean, I spent my entire childhood reading between the lines to try to find some reflection of myself. So the idea that, a young person could read this and feel like, wow, there I am in history. Like this goosebump moment that I had, the moment that started this whole thing was that I went to like a gay men's summer camp weekend experience when my daughter was, I think, 3. And there was a guy talking about, there was like a bunch of lectures you could go to. And then one guy was talking about the letters that Abraham Lincoln wrote Joshua Fry Speed, and how the letters convinced him that Abraham was in love with Joshua. And I couldn't believe it. I literally was like, no way, that can't be true. But then I went to the library and I got out a book that had all the letters in it. And it was the way that Lincoln spoke. He asked Abraham a question, and Abraham asked Joshua a question after they'd lived together for 4 years. And then Joshua moves away and marries a woman named Fanny. And Abraham asks him, are you now in feeling as well as judgment glad that you're married as you are? And that encapsulated exactly how I felt from 11 to 25, dating girls, but not feeling it, judging it the right thing to do, but not feeling it, hoping the feeling would come. The feeling didn't come. I finally got honest with myself and with others. But my gosh, it was this goosebump moment where it was like, this is a reflection of me in history. And I want that moment. There are so many queer people that are out today. And that's really, really exciting. But even within the queer community, there's this ridiculous mantra that queer history started at Stonewall. In fact, the Stonewall Inn in New York literally has banners on they had a banner over the building on the outside that said where queer history began or something. And it's like, wait, no, that was 1969. I was 2 years old. No, that is not where it began. So the idea that you can go back thousands of years, 2,600 years to Sappho, right? Like to Hatshepsut, to just these stories that we have this heritage, we have this legacy, and it's not just for queer people, it's for all of us, right? Because it really does crumble that false facade of history that says that it's only rich, white, straight, cisgendered men, right, who are able-bodied. Like it completely falls down, and it allows us to recognize that history has not been shared for so many of us. And that's really exciting and really liberating. And other people are going to have to write those other books, and I'm sure they have already. But this one felt like it was the book I had to write.
Well, we've run about half an hour now, and I have more questions, but I'd like to give people a chance to ask questions too.
So why don't we do this? Let's do the last 3 trivia questions.
Okay, and meanwhile, people be preparing your questions.
Be preparing your questions.
Hear them.
But don't raise your hand to ask your question yet. We're going to do the trivia first, okay? So, all right, back to the trivia game. Oh, isn't that just so romantic? Mark, I want you to name a mountain after me. No, just kidding. Okay, multiple choice. Ashiwi culture honors people like Wewa who live a 3rd gender role as a lamana. But when anthropologists arrived in New Mexico in 1879 to study the people and culture they called Zuni, they A, held a gender reveal party, B, saw beyond their own gender boundaries, C, felt Western culture could learn a lot from the Zuni, or D, presented Wewa in Washington, D.C. as a princess of the Zuni tribe. All right, we need a hand up. I see Jim and Lori and Bob and Charlie and Alex.
How about Bob?
Hello. We think that it's probably D.
Sadly.
Sadly.
And you would be correct. Wewa was kind of treated well, but also sort of like a lab specimen. And there was a series of photos of Wewa doing sort of native techniques. This is a belt weaving demonstration that she gave. It was really interesting to read the newspaper reports from the time. And in fact, there's one that's in the book where they call Wewa like the pet guest of Mrs. Stevenson. It was really hard to read with our current lens, but also it was really interesting because Wewa really lived her life with such dignity. And sorry, it was a big interesting thing about what pronoun to use for the Wewa chapter, because the language of the Ashiwi does not have gendered pronouns. So I went with she, because that's how, when speaking English, members of that nation spoke about Wewa. But there was definitely some back and forth about that. So Lori and Bob, congrats. You'll have to arm wrestle for who gets to wear the bracelet. Okay, let's go to the next question. Multiple choice. Chrisman Jorgensen was world famous in the 1950s and 60s for having changed her body to match her gender. Christine took the name to honor A, her faith, B, the doctor who helped her, C, a French singer she admired, D, nothing. She chose it randomly out of a phone book. And I see Amy Bram's hand up and Carol Silverstein. So Alex, you need to choose.
All right, Amy.
All right, so this is a vague possible recollection. I'm not 100% sure, but is it B, the doctor who helped her?
It is indeed, yes, congratulations. And we have one bonus question, and then I'm going to read you a couple of things from the book, and then we'll get to your questions. So this is my bonus multiple choice, because when we're talking about role models, I have to say that of everyone that I researched in the book, the person that really kind of is a role model for me, and there's a really poignant reason for this, which I'll explain in a second, is Bayard Rustin. I was so moved by his writing and his story. He was Black and gay. He was a leader kept behind the scenes during the civil rights movement in the 1960s. And let's do the trivia question, and then I'll tell you why it's so particularly moving to me. Okay, so was he A, arrested for protesting Jim Crow laws 22 times? B, did he organize the 1963 March on Washington where Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech? C, did he debate Malcolm X? Or D, did he practice nonviolence? So we need someone. We have Jim and Alex and Irene and Rebecca with their hands up.
I
Alex,
saw Rebecca first.
okay, Rebecca.
Hi, I think it's B, organized the 1963 March on Washington, where Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech.
It is, and actually it's all of them, Rebecca. There was no way you could get that wrong. Because yeah, he was amazing, and he did so much. And the reason it's so poignant to me is that well, hold on. I'm going to read the other thing first, and then I'm going to come back to why it's so poignant, because it's really an amazing story. Okay, but first, who did we have? This is a memory test. Before we had Christine. Who was before Christine? Oh my gosh. All right, we're going backwards, people. Christine, but before Christine, we had Weiwa. All right, so let me read you a little bit about Weiwa. So one of the things that was really hard is that sometimes we don't have primary source materials that are from the person's perspective. We have it from an outsider's perspective. And in the case of Weiwa, that's what we have. We have an account of Weiwa. Weiwa was really gifted at making pottery. And so this anthropologist that befriended her wrote this account of accompanying Weiwa as they went up a mountain to obtain some clay. So here we go. On passing the stone heap, she picked up a small stone in her left hand and, spitting upon it, carried the hand around her head and threw the stone over one shoulder upon the stone heap in order that her strength might not go from her when carrying the heavy load down the mesa. She then visited the shrine at the base of the mother rock and, tearing off a bit of her blanket, deposited in one of the tiny pits in the rock as an offering to the mother rock. When she drew near to the clay bed, she indicated to Mr. Stevenson that he must remain behind, as men never approached the spot, making it clear that Weiwa did not see herself as a man. Proceeding a short distance, the party reached a point where Weiwa requested the writer, Matilda Stevenson, whose words I'm reading, to remain perfectly quiet and not talk, saying, "Should we talk, my pottery would crack in the baking, and unless I pray constantly, the clay will not appear to me." She applied the hoe vigorously to the hard soil, all the while murmuring prayers to Mother Earth. 9/10 of the clay was rejected, every lump being tested between the fingers as to its texture. After gathering about 150 pounds in a blanket, which she carried on her back with the ends of the blanket tied around her forehead, Weiwa descended the steep mesa, apparently unconscious of the weight. I really like that because there's some dialogue there, and we actually get to hear Weiwa's words, which for me means so much, to get to hear what she sounded like. Okay, then we had Chrisman Jorgensen. So there's two things I'm going to read you because I was really moved. One of the things that I've learned being gay, being the G of LGBTQ, is that my job is to be an ally to all the other letters, and then also to everyone else that's sort of disenfranchised in our culture. And so I really realized I needed to learn more about trans and gender nonconforming people and genderqueer people and their history, because it's my history too, it's our history. So learning about Chrisman Jorgensen and reading her autobiography completely blew my mind. I'm going to say it too many times tonight, but yeah, it did. So at one point, about 2 months into her treatments in Denmark, she wrote in a letter to friends, "Can you realize what success for me will mean to literally thousands of people? For I am not alone in this affliction. It may mean new hope and life to so many people. I think we, the doctors and I, are fighting this the right way. Make the body fit the soul rather than vice versa. For me, it is the heart, the look in the eyes, tone of voice, and the way one thinks that makes the real person." I love that so much. And there was this one other moment that I was talking to my daughter about earlier, and I didn't mark it, but I'm gonna go back because I thought it was so beautiful. At one point before Christine started her physical transition, she stopped at the Grand Canyon, and she was trying to reconcile her feelings and trying to figure out herself. And she wrote this: "I looked into the vastness again and watched the colors change with the movement of the sun, red, then coral, and finally slowly undulating into 1,000 variated shades of lavender and purple. Slowly, one thought separated itself from the others in my mind, at first ephemeral, and then a consciously formed idea. I am looking at the work of God, I thought. But am I not a work of God too?" So beautiful. Anyway, I just, yeah, wow. Okay, and now I'm finally going to tell you why I was so unbelievably blown away by Bayard Rustin's story. So in 1986, when I went to the University of Pennsylvania, and I was still very deeply closeted, there was a gay organization, which I did not know about, for students. Penn is a very large school. And they had a speaker come and speak at the school, and it was Bayard Rustin. And I didn't learn this until doing the research for this book. And I'm going to read you just a little bit of what he said in that speech to students at the college where I was. And I could have been there, and it would have changed my whole life. So, Bayard Rustin. "The job of the gay community is not to deal with extremists who would castrate us or put us on an island and drop an H-bomb on us. The fact of the matter is that there is a small percentage of people in America who understand the true nature of the homosexual community. There is another small percentage who will never understand us. Our job is not to get those people who dislike us to love us, nor was our aim in the civil rights movement to get prejudiced white people to love us. Our aim was to try to create the kind of America, legislatively, morally, and psychologically, such that even though some whites continued to hate us, they could not openly manifest that hate. That's our job today, to control the extent to which people can publicly manifest anti-gay sentiment." And I would take it one step further and share. So at the beginning of every chapter has like a pull-out quote, a photo of the person and a pull-out quote, because it just like something that I want you to want to learn more. And Bayard says, "If we want to do away with the injustice to gays, it will not be done because we get rid of the injustice to gays. It will be done because we are forwarding the effort for the elimination of injustice to all." And in this moment in our culture where we see, finally an uprising of recognition of the terrible raw deal Black and brown people have in our culture, in this moment where we have to rally around things like Black Lives Matter and people protest and say that that's a bad thing to say, in this moment where we have to stand up and say, stop Asian hate, like Bayard's words feel so relevant and so important. And that's really why if I had to choose one role model from the book, it would be Bayard Rustin. And I'd tell myself, Lee, go to the meeting. Okay. Thank you for letting me share all that. All right, so we have time for some audience questions. Alex, you want to look for some hands raised?
I'm looking. If I'm not seeing someone, just unmute and shout out.
I see Michael Genhart has a hand up.
Great, Michael, unmute please.
Hey Lee, congratulations on your book. I can't wait to pick it up and read it. And maybe you covered this earlier. I was wondering, how did you pick the folks that made it into your book? And can you name a few people who didn't make it in?
Yeah, absolutely. So the title is No Way They Were Gay because I was continuously surprised in writing this book, in researching the book. And I kept saying it to myself. I'm like, no way, really? no way, no way. So I just kept saying it. And then ultimately I was just like, that would be a good title for the book. So surprise was my unifying theme, which I think is kind of ridiculous, but also kind of awesome because it was the people that surprised me the most. And that's what I went with. And also really with an eye to making sure that it was really clear that it was across time and around our world, that again, it wasn't just straight white guys from Europe that thought other gay white guys from Europe, that it was as diverse as I could make it. There were 3 chapters that were fully written that we ended up having to lose pretty late in the game, but it was because I was given a choice, and I could either make every chapter a little less robust, or I could lose 3 chapters. And I chose to lose the 3 chapters because I felt like it was so important to make sure there was enough substance for each chapter for the book to actually accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. So sadly, people left on the cutting room floor were Alexander the Great for Men Who Loved Men. It was Jane Addams for Women Who Loved Women. And it was Joan of Arc for people who lived outside people who lived outside gender boundaries. And man, reading the transcript of the trial of Joan of Arc, there was a brave 16-year-old soul there, I have to tell you. Thank you, Michael, for being here. Thanks for the question. I see 2 more hands up. I see April Powers and Carolyn Chris.
Yeah, I think Carolyn was there first. So if you could unmute, Carolyn.
I just did. I really don't have a question. I just want to say congratulations, Lee. I know what a journey this has been for you. And I'm just so happy to see it come to this point and share this moment with you. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it has been quite a journey. My dad, who's a marketing guru, keeps saying, you got to talk about the journey of the book because it's so incredible. It'll really win people over. I'm like, Dad, the people coming tonight have already been won over. They know who I am. They know what the book is about. But yeah, this is the 2nd publisher and the 5th editor. And it's been 11 years of working on this book. So I'm really, really grateful to Victoria Sutherland, who told Hallie Warshaw, to my agent, Marietta Zacher. There's a ton of thank yous I have to give, but certainly to the team, to Ashley and Shayna, and the whole team at Learner for being such a great home for this book. And it is so beautiful, and it really feels so, it's just, I'm so delighted to at long last have it out and going to be getting into kids' hands. That's really exciting.
All right. How about April, if you could unmute?
Thank you, Lee. I'm so excited. Forgive me for being off camera. I'm in a car on a road trip with my family, but I still wouldn't have missed a second of this. I'm so excited about your book. So my question now, because I already bought the book for my boys, is if there is stuff on the cutting room floor, does that mean there's a sequel? Do we get all of those gems that you had to cut out, please?
Well, you don't get those gems, but there will be a sequel, at least one. So in my mind, No Way They Were Gay is the first of 3 books. The series is called The Queer History Project, which you can actually see right there, right under Gandhi's face. And the idea that the first book is about people. So that's this book, No Way They Were Gay. The second book is about gender. It's called Gender Bender. I'm writing it now. It's a little hard to research when you can't go into a library, but I have 1 vaccine and shot, and hopefully I'll get another, and then hopefully libraries will open up and research will be easier. But the second book is all about how gender is a social construct and how other cultures saw and still see gender very differently than we teach it here in the West. And that can be very, very liberating. And there's a beautiful quote by Alok Ved Menon that starts off the book where Alok says, there are as many genders as there are people in the world. And I think that's a perfect place to start that story, because the idea that the gender boundaries that we all live so carefully by in our culture is imaginary, is really freeing and exciting. And then the third book is going to be about legends and myths and all the sort of foundational stories of cultures that include queerness across time and around our world. So that's the long-term vision. But for sure, the second book is underway now, and will be out. I have to write it first, but for now, we'll focus on this one. Thank you for the question, April. So,
Pat Austin, did you have a question, or was it answered?
I really did have the same question. I just think, who can let research go to waste? And you've got to have those stories out there somewhere.
yeah, well, maybe it'll be-
Congratulations on the book. I can't wait to read it as well. Have you thought possibly of picture book biographies, which of course is such a huge trend, and using some of that research for that?
I have, thank you. In particular, the story of Sappho and the bit about Sappho's love for another woman, Anactoria, being the reason that all of the fairy tales end with the kiss of true love breaking the evil spell. I love that. I think that is like the most amazing tidbit in history. So I do have a picture book that is out on submission right now, and hopefully they'll like it. But we'll see. It's actually kind of a challenging puzzle to. It's like a Rubik's cube, I think, or like a haiku. Getting a picture book biography to have real kid appeal, especially when it's about, is it about romantic love of adults? It is a puzzle I am still fiddling with. But actually, I can share that my very first picture book is going to come out in October of this year, and with Arthur Levine's company, Levine Querido, and it's called Red and Green and Blue and White, and it's a social justice sort of story about that's all about empowering kids to realize that they can make a difference in the world too, and I'm very excited about that one. So I will actually have a picture book out later this year, and we'll do another event at Pages if they'll have me. So I see Charlie's hand up.
Yeah, Charlie, if you could unmute.
So Lee, first of all, I don't think your dad has anything to worry about, because the way you present, you're just so full of passion, and just your empathy just oozes off of you. So it really is amazing. And I'm also impressed by like the love of language that, all these people, the way they speak. But I wanted to ask, because I too hated history, does this mean you actually now love research? Because it seems like if you're doing 3 of them, is it something you always loved?
No. Well, actually, I feel like the minute I realized that there were people like me in history, I got interested. And then the minute I gave myself permission to not care about the dates, I really care less about the dates. And just recognize that it's really interesting stories. And then it's sort of like you follow a trail. I mean, I joke that it's not like I'm, Indiana Jones being chased by a giant boulder, finding hidden diaries under the floorboards of old building. Like, no, I'm just going to the library. Well, I used to. I'm just getting books, from secondhand stores online, and reading the primary sources. I think like if we can put all that other stuff aside, and then you start reading the primary sources, and well, first of all, you have to dig to find the primary sources. But yeah, I get really excited because I think like, wow, if we can take out all the middlemen that hit it, and just go back and like, man, like, okay, sorry, Joan of Arc again, but like it was so striking, that story, right? It was, this trial with 160. Okay, maybe I do have to do like a deleted scenes kind of thing with those 3 chapters. I don't know. We'll work on that. We'll see.
The second printing.
Maybe. But also, you know what, the other thing about it was that we didn't want the book to feel like an encyclopedia. Like we didn't want it to be this heavy, obnoxious, intimidating thing. We wanted it to have space to breathe, which I think the designers did a great job with. So, but yeah, I'm really into it now. I'm a little bit of a history junkie, and like we were, piling up the different books. And wow, my history book, my queer history book pile is really amazing. And he's not here tonight, but I have to shout out to Don Kahefner, who was the first person that had a bookshelf, like a personal library bookshelf that I saw that was like packed with queer history. And it inspired me so much. So to think that I've grown up to sort of have my own packed bookshelf of queer history is very exciting. Eventually I'll get some bookshelves. They're on back order.
All right, we're about out of time for this part of the program, but we started a few minutes late. Does anyone have one more question before we close up this portion? If not, I have one for you, Lee.
Sure.
And that's as you and I both know, lots of banned and challenged books are queer books about queer characters or queer people. And at the same time, we know that a lot of the censorship doesn't work in terms of a challenge and books. It works more on the level of even though librarians are our heroes and librarians, get these books into the hands of young people, in schools and public libraries, in addition to, of course, bookstores. But how are you and your publisher, how are you seeing in terms of, getting the books out there to young people and to.
So the book has gotten a couple of a number of really nice editorial reviews, which is what you hope for. And in the book list review, which is the American Library Association's book list publication, they had a line in it that almost felt like a warning to librarians. They said a lot of really, really nice things. They were like solidly written, well documented and organized, contribution to gay history. And then they wrote, it's also going to inflame passions, and sort of warned librarians about possible controversy. This really upset me. And I was like, why are they warning librarians off? But then I thought, wait, okay, you know what? It is sort of maybe their job a little bit to let librarians know that, like, hey, this might be controversial. But then at the same time, I thought I wanted them to also talk about, the inflaming the passions of the young people who read the book and at long last see a reflection of themselves. Like that, I think, is worth a little controversy or a lot of controversy. I don't know. Will the book be banned or challenged? I expect it will, but I also expect that will help spread the word about it. And I'm sure my feelings will be really, really hurt, but at the same time, this isn't about me. I mean, it literally today stopped being about me. This book is now available for you, for readers, for those kids at Brave Trails and beyond. It's not about me anymore. Now the book is off on its journey and every person that reads it is on their own adventure with it. And that's really exciting. I've never really had, I mean, I had the novel, The Queer as a $5 Bill, which I loved and actually wrote it pretty much at the same time as the first draft of this book, because there was so much evidence about Lincoln and Speed that I couldn't cram it all into the novel. So I thought, well, maybe there's a nonfiction book here. And then I was like, that sounds so boring, a nonfiction book just about Abraham Lincoln and Joshua Fry's Speed. And then I was like, well, what would be the book that I would want to read? And that tearing down the false facade of history, that was the book I wanted to read. And that's the book I wrote. And that's the book that you can get. I think that answered the question, but I'm really grateful. And I know that we're pretty much out of time, but I want to just really quickly acknowledge everyone that's here. It's an amazing turnout. I'm so grateful to you for being part of my community. If I don't know you, welcome. And those I do know, I'm so glad to see your smiling faces. I know that Pam and Casey at Pages are they're standing by to take your order if you haven't ordered your book yet. The great thing about ordering your book from Pages is that I get to go sign them and then I can personalize them as well. So you just have to put that little note in when you do your order. And wow, it's book launch day. And look, I have balloons. Oh, and the coolest roses ever. Okay, can you see them? They're like hand dyed. Each petal is a different color. They're incredibly thorny. So hold on one second. Okay. Is that the coolest thing ever?
Very cool.
Okay, now I'm dripping everywhere. So thanks everyone for showing up. I really appreciate it. Pam, Casey, do you have final words that you want to share?
Thank you so much, Lee. And we just so congratulate you on such a wonderful book and project. Yes, we would love to get more books into kids' hands. We are so, we just admire you so much for partnering in getting kids in books in kids' hands. So if anybody would still like to purchase a book and for a donation or for yourself, please go online and order books, and we'll have Lee come back over and sign another stack. So Alex, it was a delight to meet you, and we so thank you for being here also. We really appreciate, yeah, we really
You can
appreciate
order Alex's book too. It's really great.
an independent bookstore. And Lee, thank you for launching with us.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. All right, all. Giant hugs to you. You know, one of the downsides is that we can't do this in person, but one of the upsides is that means that from all over the country, I see friends and family, and I'm so grateful to you all. So I feel like I want to go through. Are we still recording, Pam?
We are, yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Well, then for posterity, I get to say, Charlie, thank you for being here. April, Stuart, Lori, and Bob, Megan, Rilla, Bob, Bill, Erica, Jim, Gail, Francie, Nancy, Pat, Lindsay, Roxy, Alex, Justin, hey, Tracy Ty, oh my gosh, Linda, Ellen, okay, page 2, Carol, my brother John, Zena, Stephen, Cheryl, Carolyn, Robert, Ilse, George, Chester, Amy, Michael, Ashley, Sally, Carrie, hey, Lori Young, who helped me with the redesigning my beautiful new website, Rachel, Emma Dryden, oh my gosh, thank you, you're amazing. My dad and Barbara, hi, Jill and Daryl, Angela from IBPA, hi, Evan, Joseph, Alexis, Chuck and Nancy, I love you. Paula, hello. Jaslyn, hey. Joe and Alexis and, oh, hey, I see Greg and Rana and Irene and Michael and Ken and Elizabeth and Christy and Laurent and Christopher and Cindy and Rita and Roberta and Karen and Shana and Teresa and April and Carol and Elizabeth and Rebecca and Heidi. You're my community. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.